What's up, folks? Woohoo! It's Friday! How many of you feel that way? Do you feel like you've been running uphill all week? Finally, you can chill for a bit. Those of you who aren't studying, those of you who are studying, you're like, I'm going to accelerate and hit this thing real crazy. Welcome to Schedule Management. This is where we talk about timelines. And if you're studying for the exam, I really hope you have a timeline. Because if you don't have a timeline, you're setting yourself up for you know what, and I hope you know. So, in this particular chapter, we're going to be talking about schedules. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Phil. I'm your friend, I'm your colleague, taking you through the trajectory to PMP exam success. I've been a project manager for going to 2 decades now, worked on all sorts of projects, government, healthcare, engineering, even gaming. That's right, those of you who like WoW, been there, done that. Didn't work for a while, but worked in a firm that was building a multiplayer online role-playing game. And my oh my, what fun it was until the music stopped suddenly. 2008, 2009, you guys know what happened round about then. Everything went downhill. Everything went downhill for a lot of folks in corporate business. The economy tanked. But anyway, I decided to be fully into training project management. And if you are looking for great and awesome training to get you into shape for the PMP exam, highly recommend go to Praizion.com and check out what we've got. I've trained lots of firms, government agencies that you see on the screen. But this page, 25, it's that page that everyone loves, right? To hate. Or hates to love. Some people, they've got almost like a photographic memory. They can memorize this stuff with ease. I had a student, Dave, out of Canada. This was like child's play to him. I remember on our mock exam, he took that mock exam, 4-hour mock exam, took it in 1.5 hours and killed it and did the same thing. I remember going out for a break, after about an hour plus when they were taking their mock exam, because I usually play the part of the proctor. Those of you who've been to Prometric, you know how it is. You got the Prometric proctor circling around, making sure that you didn't bring in any micro pieces of paper, right? So I usually just give them that, experience, that feeling. And I remember going for a little break and coming back at about 1 hour, 30 minutes in, only to see him wandering out of the elevator. I'm like, where you going? You going on a break? He's like, no, I got done with the exam. How was it? Oh yeah, I passed. So some people, to them, all of this stuff is like second nature. They've got that memory to retain stuff. They know stuff like they've been there, done that. But that's not everyone. Some of us need all the help that we can get. And I'll be first to raise my hand and tell you, I wish I had some of these crazy mnemonics to help me. So I'm going to be giving you some mnemonics for schedule management tonight. Scheduling, that area. But before we hit that, I want to make sure that you know the postcode, the 2241012 so that when you're drawing out that table, right, you're going to remember, hey, there's meant to be 2 in initiating, 1's missing, all right? I want you to know and account for what is on this page. Okay, so 2241012 a lot of the processes that we're looking at today are within the 24. We have tackled a few from scope, also in the 24, and 1 from integration, also in the 24. We also have the knowledge area phone number. So the knowledge area phone number breaks it down by knowledge area, 7 in integration, 6 in scope, and 6 today in schedule. So do you remember the mnemonic from last time? Prince Charles dances calypso very confidently, was it? Go check it out and take a look at the picture of him. But today we are talking about scheduling the second 6. So we've covered so much volume in these first 3 videos. We've covered 7, 6, and 6. That's 19. That's a lot of processes that we're covering, a lot of mileage. So we will be covering the second 6 today. So what do I have in store for you for this particular area? Think about it. When people are in crisis, what should they do? they should be thinking about singing. So the schedule mnemonic is people don't sing enough during crisis. If they did, how cool would it be? If they did, they'd probably calm down a whole lot more. Don't you agree? So if you are ever in a crisis, sing, hum, nothing aggressive, calm music, and it will probably help you. So what does this all stand for? The P stands for plan, schedule, management. The D, define activities. The S, sequence activities. The next E, estimate activity durations. This is very important because if you read the 5th edition, this has changed. It used to be something else right here in the 4th process, not anymore. Next, we have develop schedule, and all those first 5 are in planning. And last but not least, we've got control schedule. So those are the 5 plus the 1, the 5 in planning and the 1 in the controlling process group, the monitoring and controlling process group. Now I have a second mnemonic for you. So if that one didn't work, I've got another one. Let's take a look at this one. Now this is in line with scheduling. Now to let this one stick, you got to remember the PMI. If you've ever been involved in a PMBOK guide update, a change to the exam, what can you say about PMI's scheduling skills? We're kind of left playing a bit of hopscotch and wondering, when is it exactly going to land? Oh, it's going to land sometime in the end of March. When? At the end of March. And they kept us hanging for eons. I don't know if you guys remembered. If you were on the 5th edition, you probably do. So this mnemonic is to do with our friends at the PMI. This one will definitely stick because you can picture the fact that a lot of students want to know, when is the cutoff? When do we have to take the exam by? And PMI is like, it's going to be the end of March. When? March 31st? Just choose a date. So anyway, this mnemonic is PMI doesn't schedule enough during changes. If they did, they'll be able to tell us. It's March 28th. They'll be able to tell us ages in advance. So this is just a play on words. Don't get all emotional. Don't get all bent out of shape. I love the PMI. I love what they're doing. But this is a fun mnemonic to help you remember scheduling. And it's smack dab in line with the knowledge area. So PMI doesn't schedule enough during changes. But maybe PMI would argue, oh, we're just being agile. Who knows? But anyway, you know what all this stuff stands for now. The P, again, plan schedule management. The D, define activities, sequence activities, estimate activity durations, develop schedule, and last but not least, what you're trying to control. You are trying to control your schedule. So those are the 6 processes. Just remember, people don't sing enough during crisis, or PMI doesn't schedule enough during changes. Or maybe you even sing at church. You could say people don't sing enough during church services or during church, whatever you want to put in there. So I've given you 3 mnemonics, all right? Choose one that works for you. Now let's take a look at what exactly the weighting of these processes is on the exam. Okay, so let's take a look. Again, the PMI don't put this in the PMP handbook. This is just my take based on the number of processes in every knowledge area. So we got 5 processes out of the 25. Think about it. You got 25 processes that account for 25%. As I'm looking at the 5 from planning in scheduling, I'm thinking that's already 5%. And I'm looking at the one in monitoring and controlling, doing the quick maths and saying that's probably another 2%. So if you really break it down, you get something to this effect. You get 1% for the first one, the second one, the third one, the fourth one, the fifth one, but the sixth one, because it's in monitoring and controlling, carries double that. So you've got 5 plus 2, a total of 7 in my estimation of things. And watch this, you could, on the exam, have something different from what my approximation is, especially if it is mixed with other knowledge areas. You could have a question from schedule and scope at the same time. I could be testing you on the work breakdown structure being an input to, implicitly, to define activities, you see. I could be testing you on a whole lot of stuff regarding risks, So as we go through this stuff, even though this is my take, it is just to help you frame your concentration, okay? Frame how much time you spend. Some people get all bent out of shape with network diagrams. I'm not saying network diagrams aren't important, don't get me wrong. Network diagrams are extremely important. In fact, anyone studying for the exam that doesn't know network diagrams could get in trouble. So I'm not saying don't read network diagrams. Don't read slack flow, leads, lags, project flow, free flow, total flow. I'm not saying don't do that. Please, by all means, study all of these areas. But as you study, do not neglect the areas that I'm showing you could be weightier on the exam. It is very important you don't neglect those areas that are significantly weightier. All right? So as you approach this, I would spend a lot of time in the controlling aspects of the schedule, understanding what all that is, understanding the tools and techniques of it. So why don't we do this? Let's pick up this book, one of our favorite books here. And everyone knows that this is a book that should be looked at for the exam. But I just wanted to alert you to page 222 and take a look at some of these tools and techniques here. So right here under control schedule, you actually have under data analysis in figure 6-22, you actually have earned value analysis. Now some people would say, oh, but earned value is in cost. You use earned value here for your schedule performance. So when you think about schedule performance index, don't just relegate it to cost. Think about it being used in schedule as well. We also have burn down, iteration burn down charts, used a lot in the world of Agile, performance reviews, trend analysis, variance analysis, which you probably already know, what if scenario analysis. What happens if this happens to our schedule? Simple what if scenario analysis will also help. We also have critical path method. You definitely have to know that one. Whether you're using the 1 or the 0 method, makes no difference. Know what it is, know how to manipulate that stuff. PMIS, this is a big one. Resource optimization, resource leveling, and resource smoothing. Know the differences? Leads and lags, of course you know those. It would be helpful to have a practical view of how these are. So lead time appears as a negative in most software apps. Lag time appears as a positive. So your plus 10 would be a lag of 10. Minus 10 would be a lead of 10. Schedule compression, crashing and fast tracking, and truly understanding the little differences between both, and what really makes crashing and fast tracking. Let me show you a few of these things right here. So on page 228, it says schedule compression techniques are used to find ways to bring project activities that are behind into alignment with the plan by fast tracking or crashing the schedule for the remaining work, and it says go to 6.5.2.6, as the PMBOK guide always does. And if we go there on page 215, here are a few of the tiny little things people often miss about crashing. It says a technique used to shorten the schedule duration for the least incremental cost. That is so key. Least incremental cost. That is a trademark of crashing. By adding resources. And we're talking about all sorts of resources, not just human, equipment, materials, supplies, facilities. Don't forget that. It says examples of crashing include approving overtime. That's a key one. A lot of people don't hone in on that. Bringing in additional resources. Most people know that. Or paying to expedite delivery to activities on the critical path. A lot of folks miss that. Definitely want to highlight it. It says crashing works only for activities on the critical path where additional resources will shorten the activity's duration. That is another key statement, because you could crash all of those non-critical activities. May not help you very much compared to when you do that to those critical activities. It says crashing does not always produce a viable alternative and may result in increased risk and or cost. Now, if we take a look at the next one, fast tracking, it says a schedule compression technique in which activities or phases normally done in sequence are performed in parallel for at least a portion of their duration. You see that? You may not even fast track for the entire task. Someone could say, is it true that 2 activities must be fast tracked for their entire duration for it to be called fast tracking? No, you could do just a little bit of those 2. It says an example is constructing the foundation of a building before completing all of the architectural drawings. Fast tracking may result in rework and increased risk. Now, note the word may. If you ever come across a question that says fast tracking always results in increased rework, it always results in rework and increased risk, that won't be true. It says it may, okay? And then fast tracking only works when activities can be overlapped to shorten the project duration on the critical path. Using leads in case of schedule acceleration usually increases coordination efforts between the activities concerned and increases quality risk. Fast tracking may also increase project costs. So some people also miss that statement, that as a result of fast tracking, you could find costs being increased. So not just crashing, involves cost. Fast tracking could result in additional cost. Crashing typically would require some incremental cost because you're adding more resources. So typically crashing does that. Someone might argue, but I'm using salaried employees. Don't go into all the semantics, just understand the principles behind that. So when it comes to the controlling of the schedule, I want to encourage you to spend a little bit more time, focusing on those aspects, especially the tools and techniques. When it comes to the first 5, you do need to understand, of course, the tools and techniques. Developed schedule is the one I would go for to compare to control schedule. In fact, I would look at those side by side, because people are often tricked in questions where they're talking about controlling the schedule because the tools are the same. People think, oh, it's got to be developed. No. If someone's talking about a project that is already late and they're talking about crashing, you know that they're not talking about developed schedule at that point. We're talking about control schedule. I'm sure you've probably come across some of those. If you've really been studying hard, you've probably come across some of those. But I want to encourage you, if you're not hitting the right questions that you should, you're not finding all the crazy questions that test you to the end of the earth, hey, go to the website, Praizion.com. That's Praizion.com, right there on the screen. Sign up for our 35 Contact Hour course. It would be absolutely awesome to have you as our guest and our student taking you through the trajectory to success. It's a journey, getting to success on the PMP exam is a real journey, okay? So come on board, bring your tool, bring your book, let's do it. Thank you very much for your audience, and I wish you all the best. Hey, before I go, I want to also remind you, key terminologies. There's a lot of terms when it comes to scheduling. And if you haven't honed in on Slack and float being the same thing, and the 3 types of Slack to really know them well, just in case they came up: free Slack, project Slack, and total Slack. Know those as well as you can. Also, when it comes to the network diagrams, make sure you can solve network diagrams with the eyeballing method. Don't go off on a tangent trying to do forward passes and backward passes when the question only asked a simple question that you could solve by eyeballing it. Okay, so always read the question very carefully. Also, when it comes to the critical path, remember the slack and the float on the critical path, 0, right? For free float or total float, as long as it's an activity on the critical path, it's going to be 0. So don't get carried away trying to calculate forward pass, backward pass, if you are being asked for the slack or float of something on the critical path. And that's why I usually say eyeball it, understand what is the critical path, and then once you understand what is the critical path, it becomes easier for you to answer questions, those pesky questions that actually want to trick you into thinking you need to have a big old dog and pony show calculation. Whereas it's, oh, it's on the critical path, it cannot be anything other than 0. Or you have options and you see one negative and everything else is positive. Of course, anything on the critical path is 0 or negative. So you know it cannot be the positives. It's got to be the negative one. All right? So I hope that gave you some ideas, some things to think about. All of those maneuvers that you do on the forward pass and backward pass, I hate to tell you this, but some of you may never have to use those on the exam. You may never have to do a forward pass, you may never have to do a backward pass, but we don't know who's who, so we got to read everything, right? You got to read the whole thing. So as you study, I wish you all the best, and if you have any questions, don't forget, this is your one-stop shop to help you ace the exam and answer all those questions along the way. I look forward to seeing you in the next video. Thank you, and bye for now.